Very good. So Anthony, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Alex, and welcome everyone tonight, and particularly welcoming our representatives from the various districts here who are going to talk about this important work around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what the format tonight is that we're going, and we're want to make sure that we're sticking to an hour and a half at the max, and we want to take total advantage of it. Our goal here tonight is to first hear from each of the districts and the representatives from districts who Alex just introduced. And our goal is to ask them to have 5 to 7 minutes in which you share their district priorities, challenges, and plans of the next 12 to 18 months, and to talk about those things that, you know, from the past to the present to the future. At the end of that, we will have some questions for the panels, in which I will ask the panel some questions based on some questions that have been given. But if people have questions that they should put in the chat box, and our good friend Chad will be writing those down and sharing them out with me, and I will we will share them at the panel. And at the end, if we have questions for the panel, that individuals could do it. I will say, full disclosure, that tonight is not a night to bring your personal concerns to the district. If there are issues that you have for the district that's specific to you, I will personally make sure you get in touch with those people that you need to. Today is talking about the overall arching piece of it and to get a global perspective on that. So, but if people, like I said, our goal is that we also want to make sure if there's anything that people specifically would need to be addressed, that we do that offline, and I will promise you, I'll put you in touch with the people, all the people here. So we're going to, the way that we're going to do this is we're going to start with Dr. Thorpe. We're going to start with you. Dr. Thorpe is joining us from Baldwin School, and giving us from the private school perspective, which is just equally in part the work there as we do in the public schools. Dr. Thorpe.
Sure, thank you. I appreciate everyone's attention. I know it's late. I appreciate you bringing this together and being asked to take part. As it was mentioned, I'm interim director. I've only been at Baldwin since October. So when I start thinking about what the next 18 months might look like, it's a very different view in my mind, as it might be for some of my other counterparts here. Right now, I can tell you at Baldwin, what I've been working on is ensuring that my office is not reactionary, but is proactive. The way that I view DEI is sort of, if we teach each other, children, how to do something or what needs to be done or a better way to go forward, then we're not catching up afterwards saying, oh no, we never taught them about this and that's why this thing happened. Education can be a very powerful tool. I think everyone on the call will agree with that. So I like to empower by educating. I just think that that's really important. So now that I've been there for around 3 months, barring the holidays, I'm really able to kind of dig in and start doing some things that I think will make the office more proactive. So starting off with Black History Month and having continuous conversations. Every week, we're going to have a different conversation with me. I'm going to leave one open so that students can bring their perspective. One thing that I really do appreciate about Baldwin is they are very, very specific and very intentioned on making sure that the students, the girls, are able to use their voices. So I have been telling them as I go to assemblies, as I meet them, as we talk, when you have a concern, bring a concern. Sometimes they really get that feeling that, well, I'm a student, what can I do? Or what can I say? I have to just kind of sit here and take it. I'm uncomfortable about something. I don't have anyone to tell, or I'm not supposed to say anything. And I've been really trying to refute that. Like, no, bring every concern you have. If it's something major, we'll deal with it. If it's something light, we'll deal with it. But I want them to consistently be heard. And I can't say how important that is, not just to the children we're educating, but even ourselves. So that's something that I've been working on with them. Another big thing that Baldwin has, which I think is pretty exciting, is a student-led diversity conference. It's called Building Bridges, just the idea of building a bridge of understanding from one population to another. And that's all populations, any population, just sharing and caring about each other and trying to figure out better ways that we can understand each other and, again, move forward in a fruitful conversation. We don't have the kind of blue-eyed vision that all of diversity's issues are solved after a one-day conference. It's the idea is having these small conversations that I'm beginning in the month of February, leading up to Building Bridges, where we're going to be talking about just about any and every topic the girls have brought up, everything from misogyny, everything from gender identity, neurodivergence, racial identity, socioeconomic status. They want to talk about all of it. This generation or these generations are very conscious of what's been going on in society because so much has been going on and it permeates everything. So giving them a platform to discuss it, giving them guidance and not just telling them you're going to do. It's more so they come to me with an idea and I say, okay, well, let's think about how we can do that in the best way. But they see themselves represented in what they're doing. And I just think that's dreadfully important. So planning that massive conference that takes place in April is pretty much taking up all of my time, which is good. The other end of what I've been doing at Baldwin, which I think is really important, a lot of these positions are kind of brought in and focused in just one area, just students or just employees. And I do both. So if there are employee issues, if there's something that someone feels like they need to discuss, if there's a venue where they feel like they were uncomfortable or something was said or something wasn't said, I've been working with employees on this too. It's also been important to me to work very closely with staff, with faculty. We have a diversity in core initiative where we're looking at specific key pieces of diversity every year and how we can sort of implement them. Last year was the Black experience. This is AAPI, looking at the Asian American perspective and everything that's encompassed in that diaspora and how we can weave it into things that we're already doing in the classroom to just sort of remember there are other voices. You know, it's very easy to go to one text about one thing and go to that same book that you've been teaching for the last 15 years because that's your mainstay. But what if you introduce another voice? What if you introduce another perspective? And what is that going to mean to the students? You know, what is that going to mean to your own growth? So I've been helping faculty with that. There are some books, of course, or some movies or material that have sensitive things in. I've been going to class meetings and talking to students about it. The book you're about to read does cover lynching. Let's discuss in an age-appropriate way what that means, what you might encounter, some of the words you might see, and let's discuss your comfort level or your discomfort level. So all of that really has been encompassed in all of my work, and I'm sure I'm leaving out tons of important things, but that's really been the crux of what I've been working on and what the future looks like right now.
Thorpe, thank you so much, and thank you for bringing the private school perspective in. And so thank you. Next, we'll have Dr. Oscar Torres, who is the Director of Equity and Public Programs for the TE School District. Oscar.
Thank you. Thank you for providing the space for us to be able to share a little bit of what we're doing, but also, most importantly, learn from each other. As I was going through thinking about what we do every day, sometimes we're in this work so heavily that to be able to stop and think about, okay, you know, let me really make sure that I'm following my short and long-term goals and identifying what my challenges are as we're delivering this experience, right? As we're all on this journey. And basically, a lot of what we do is bringing other people onto the journey and welcoming them into an experience that can build a coalition of support for our students and our staff. So when I look at the short-term goals that we have set for ourselves, one of the key most important pieces have been, or two of the important pieces that I wanted to focus on is really, what are we doing for our students? What are we doing for our families, right? And I guess, and then of course, the third one would be the staff, right? Which is making sure that we have a diverse staff so students can see themselves in the people that are teaching them. When it comes to our family, we've been able to develop a family community partnership group. we were able to really go out and find families that have shared difficult experiences in the past and identify who they are, worked with the administrators and the teachers who've had these conversations with families. And we thought, let's bring these families together and let's build a coalition with them. So we have a formal committee. We call it the Family and Community Partnership Group, where we have staff members, but we also have members of the community of color, marginalized communities that rarely had a voice. And if they shared their voice, no one was really listening. So we're in our second year of this group, and now we're really taking a look at unpacking the data within our schools by race and identifying all of those holes that really are aligned with the stories that the families have been telling us for years, that their children have not had access to a higher level course or an AP course, or even a gifted program, for example. And now we have the data that kind of, we just unpacked the data for this year. And we're sharing it for the first time with parents in this small group so that we can really start taking a look at what we need to do, as well as what can we do, listening to their voices of what could work, right? Bringing them to the table. We eliminate our titles. So the superintendents in this committee and directors and principals and teachers, and we don't use our titles. We use our first names, and we are all there to, in a sense, share that responsibility and share the power of bringing change to the school district. That was kind of scary at the beginning, right? Because we're trained to be in charge all the time and to hold that data close to your heart and be careful about sharing it. So, but it's been a beautiful experience with those families and those parents. So our goal is to continue to be with them and stand next to them, and them stand next to us as we continue to do this work. Another piece, as I said, is our student piece. And the student piece is about really bringing their voices into the space, like providing the students with the training and the opportunity to have conversations with their peers, but also with adults that look like them, but also understand them, including those allies that they have throughout the building. And we've been able to develop what we call Students Organized for Anti-Racism. And we have 200 students at the high school who are participating in that program. And we just developed this year a middle school component. So both of our middle schools each have a club with about 15 to 20 kids. And we bring in a trainer that works with them to allow them to really tell their story and then heal from some of those difficult stories, but also be able to be confident in their story and not apologize for showing up in their feelings or, with their beliefs that other people aren't respecting. Those students are finding their voice and have said, okay, now it's our time to speak. So I partner with those students, and we've had a student speak event last spring where the students were able to, just to the entire community, they just opened it up and said, we have something to say. And they were able to share their stories and then their hopes for future students in our district. To the point where they have said to me, Dr. Torres, you got to give us more space. You got to give us more opportunities to speak to people. You've got to speak to the teachers. So in my induction program, I actually make space for the students. When I deliver an equity session, I actually have a student panel, and they speak to the teachers, the new teachers in the district, and they get to ask questions of the students, and the students get to give them advice on what not to do. What are those microaggressions that keep happening in the classrooms that they don't see, and giving them some advice as to how to welcome students of color and students who have different perspectives into the classroom. We're actually working with the other school districts in Chester County to develop an opportunity for these student leaders to come together in the county and have a full day together, workshop days, so they can share their ideas with each other. We do training we are trained, 4 of us are affiliates with the Courageous Conversations. We now have about 75% of our entire staff, professional staff, has been trained in Courageous Conversations about race. And we are having monthly training sessions. We have one next week with about 40 members of the community. We're now also expanding it to the secretaries and cafeteria workers and some of the custodians, and even our aides. So by May, every single professional staff member would have been trained in that. And many of our support staff over the summer will finish the support staff of the training, so that we can all use the same language when we're talking about student success and our own personal journeys and our own personal beliefs using the compass and the agreements. When it comes to curriculum, we have been for a few years working on the social studies and English curriculum, making sure that that has multiple perspectives. We designed our own curricular inquiry process, and that's been very powerful. We've gone to every school to introduce the inquiry process. We designed it with the teachers and as part of the team to design this curricular inquiry process. The goal of it is to ensure multiple perspectives in a teacher's lesson design and unit design. So when a teacher takes a look at this and can identify the multiple perspectives, then they can have a more balanced view of making sure that when they design lessons or units, that they're looking at multiple resources to bring into the classroom to ensure that there are multiple perspectives. Not perspectives that, for example, there was no moon landing, right? We're not looking at that type of a perspective. It's about real perspectives that could really enhance a conversation in the classroom. And that some kids might walk away with a different perspective, and that's okay. That everybody does not end up in the same place in the classroom. And that is something that has been powerful. We've been sharing that with our parents as well. We've been having meetings with our parents to share our curricular inquiry process, because that is really, when they're asking about what's happening in the classroom, that is what's happening in the classroom. And now we're just working with the teachers to develop those units and lessons. So the communication with parents is something that we are holding meetings with within each PTO group and parents in that community. And it's not easy to have those conversations, because people come with their perspective and some people just want to make sure that you stop doing the work that you're doing, trying to interrupt that work. And we have a building equity team at each building, and we continue to support the work there. We're very fortunate that we just passed our strategic plan, and there's a whole component of equity work in the strategic plan, along with that strand in every other action plan throughout the entire strategic plan. So we're very fortunate to have that. So those are sort of like the short-term goals that we've been working on right now. Long-term goals, again, is to train all the teachers to ensure that every staff member new to the district in the onboarding process will be provided with some sort of training in our Courageous Conversations about race. We really believe in developing our own tools that work for us, with our teachers and staff being a part of that process. Our educators of color, making sure that we are doing everything that we can to diversify the applicant pool. And once we hire teachers of color, that we're actually providing that affinity group and opportunity for teachers to be with each other, but also to have the allies within the building. So whether it's a Bar-We group of white teachers or Teachers of Color Coalition that we've designed, we also are very fortunate. I've been in the district for 20 years, and many years I was the only person of color in the administrative staff, and I'm very happy that we actually have a coalition of 7 administrators of color that we now can come together and really talk about our experiences and how we support each other in a mainline school, right? And you can just imagine some of the perspectives that we receive and interactions that we might receive from people. The role of the Department of Education, and really enhancing and connecting with folks there to ensure that we have their back that they have our back, right? And that we have backup from PDE with the requirements from PDE. And I've been on a task force with them to ensure that schools are given the opportunity to continue this work. And then our webpage is something that is a long-term project for me to make sure that what we're doing can be seen by others. And so those are my short and long-term goals.
All right, Oscar, thanks so much. Ms. Carter from Haverford School District, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me. Again, I'm Christina Carter. I'm the Director of Learning and Assessment for the School District of Haverford Township. Part of my role for the district is actually functioning as the Equity Director as well. I get very excited and passionate about the work that we do. We do a lot of things in this area, so I'll try to touch on a few. Although I am no stranger to the DEI work within this world, I am one of the newest members of the Haverford administration. This May will make my first year within the district, which I have absolutely loved my time so far. And I'm spending this first year spending a lot of time learning about the various aspects about our Haverford community and about the various cultures and how diverse and unique we are within our community. We may be smaller than some other districts, but we still have a great amount of diversity and things to celebrate where we are. Some of the things that we are doing are not new. We have been doing this equity work since about 2016 in the district, really focusing on various issues of belonging within our district and seeing how to help students really find a place that's theirs. And we're continuing to do that same exact work. Just because I'm here doesn't mean it started with me, it's continuing with me. And we want to make sure that every student has a place where they feel like they belong in the classroom, in the community, or any sports teams that they are on. Much of our work is completely driven by our district goals. Our district goals are preparing contemporary citizens, social and emotional wellness, and diversity and inclusion. Although we have a direct goal that's focuses on diversity and inclusion, we did a lot of work this summer with our administrators at our, not alumni retreat, but our administrator retreat. And what our administrators really found when we dug into the various goals that we have, we found that equity, inclusion, belonging, diversity, they live in every single thing that we do. So that means they are in every goal. It should be living, breathing. It shouldn't just be in one goal, but we do have a goal to look at what are the specific areas we want to focus on, but we want to make sure that it's being done every single place, because if we don't focus on it in every single place, students won't see it and they won't be able to feel it either. Part of that work in itself is making sure that our building leaders are able to speak to their staff about it. So they take that back from our administrative retreat, and then they go back into their buildings and they talk to their staff about what are the goals and what are the initiatives we're working on around DEI and belonging. So that's some of our priorities that are directly tied to our goals that we're focusing on. But I would say everybody has challenges, but I would probably say I can speak for many people who are DEI practitioners or DEI directors. We all would ask for more time. Our challenge is time. If somebody had an extra hour, a day, a year, we could use that extra time if you wanted to give it to us to make sure that we can get it done. Because although we would love to do it, in public education, there are so many demands placed on us as a district. There's demands placed on our administrators, our teachers, and there's various initiatives that we have to make sure we carry out in addition to making sure we create a place of belonging and have our DEI goals ready to go. So I would love more time. We try to spend our time collaborating with each other, but this work is not mine solely to bear. And we want to make sure that this work is being done by every single person. And that includes our students. Our students are so passionate about the work that we want to make sure we hear their voices. So when we actually are doing the work, we're also speaking with our students who are in our secondary school, so middle school and high school, to hear what they have to say and get their input into the work and around the goals that we're currently working on. I'll tell you our initiatives right now that we are prioritizing. We are continuing our work with the DVCEE, the Delaware Valley Consortium of Excellence. I hope I had that long name correct, but we're continuing our work with that, where our administrators and our teachers, they go to workshops and trainings all year long, and they take time out of their day. We provide them coverage so that they can continue their practices and continue to learn. But a great part of DVCEE is that it also brings our students on board, and they get to go to a student institute, and that's actually coming up pretty soon. So our students in middle and high school will be able to take part and learn how they can advocate for this area as well within their school, and how they can be DEI leaders so that they can carry it out within their friend groups as well. Also, currently right now, one of our initiatives that we're also continuing, it's through the University of Penn's Catalyst, which falls under that same DVCE consortium, is we are administering the PSSM, which is the Psychological Sense of Membership Survey. So if you're in the Haverford community, which I've seen some faces on here, some of you are Fords within our community, you probably have seen that there is a survey that's going out for our 4th through our 12th graders to answer questions about how they feel about belonging within our district. And we use that information to go back and look at it as an administrative team to see how can we continue to grow, how have we done well from year to year, helping our students feel like they belong, and what are some additional areas that we just really want to focus on. We also have right now our building equity teams. I know Mr. Torres spoke about his building equity teams too. We have them as well at each and every one of our buildings. There's typically about a team of 10 that work each month around different topics around culturally responsive teaching in the brain by Zaretta Hammond. And they look at the various topics. So some of them are understanding culture, just aspects of how the brain works when it comes to routines and rituals, and just understanding how to help all diverse learners and what that need is for a teacher to make sure that learning really just continues in different ways in the classroom. And isn't just the way it's been done, but how can we continue to meet our students where they are? So, and I would say the last thing really is when we think about our current work, we always go back. We're driven by our goals. So we go back to our goal 3. When we think of diversity and inclusion, we have 3 main things that we work on. Even though we have a lot of things going on, our 3 main things outside of our culturally responsive teaching PD, we are working on identifying populations that are under or overrepresented. Really, we're looking to help with the disproportionality and looking at that in the representation at higher level courses and gifting. We're also, I think somebody still also, we're working on hiring and retention practices, and included in that is a Grow Your Own program. So that looks like our students right now are currently going to the DCIU to participate in something called Super Educator Academy. So we're looking to test some of our youth who want to be a teacher and try to diversify the teacher pipeline in the same way for our students. And the last thing is just really looking at how can we ensure that every student has dignity in the classroom and in every space that they walk into within our district. So thank you. I enjoyed being here to just be able to talk to you about all of the great work, and no, it's not just me. I always like to say that it really has to do with all of the people that work with me and support me along the way, because one person can't carry this mantle. So thank you to everyone who continues to help me with that.
Ms. Carter, thank you so much. Next we have Dan Bechtel from Radnor Township, Assistant to the Superintendent of Radnor Township School District. Dan.
All right, thank you, Dr. Stevenson, and good evening, everyone. As Dr. Stevenson said, my name is Dan Bechtel, and I am the Assistant to the Superintendent for the Radnor Township School District for District Administration. The Radnor Township School District is committed to our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiative, and truly appreciate tonight's effort in helping to discuss, giving us the opportunity to discuss this important work. This year, our district initiated a book study using the book Belonging Through a Culture of Dignity So I know that this is one of the hot reads out there right now. Belonging Through a Culture of Dignity, The Keys to Successful Equity Implementation is by authors John Cronapple and Floyd Cobb. Our book study for Radnor kicked off with leadership training. And I got to give credit to our school board. At the end of last school year, they approved a contract for our district to engage the authors of the book to help provide professional development. To this end, our administrative team engaged in 6 2 to 3 hour training sessions with the authors, John Cronapple and Floyd Cobb via Zoom. In 2 of these sessions, our school board members took time out of their busy schedule to get training so they could be better able to speak and understand what we're going through as a district in regards to this book. Additionally, the Radnor Township School District purchased 650 copies of the book for every single employee in our district. So a lot of times what we had heard last year, we did an audit with Sage Wellness and really looked and got community feedback and feedback from our employees. And a lot of times what we heard was there were certain groups that felt left out that were employees. Like a lot of times administrators and teachers get professional development training, but what about secretaries or paraeducators or cafeteria staff or custodians or maintenance or bus drivers? They all interact with students. Shouldn't this be everyone's work? And so our district made a commitment to purchasing a copy of the book for everyone and giving everyone time to read the book. Book studies for Belonging Through a Culture of Dignity were initiated for all schools, for teaching and support staff that were located in our schools, and these were facilitated by our building administrators. Book studies for groups such as our cafeteria workers, bus drivers, custodians, and maintenance personnel were held in the fall in a lunch and learn style format for the first half of the book, and these were facilitated by district office administrators. And the second half of the book is slated for the same format in the spring. Our district also worked with the authors of the book to support our book study. John Cronapple attended our first day back for all employees and gave a keynote speech in August to get everyone excited about our DEI focus for this year. Following up on that, in October, our district hosted a community conversation with authors John Cronapple and Floyd Cobb. And during this session, the authors shared the central tenets of the research and the book and discussed the goals and the progress of their work. Part of the premise of Belonging Through a Culture of Dignity is that really looking at data and identifying people's feelings of appreciation, acceptance, validation, and fair treatment are critical. And so in November, we issued a staff climate survey based on these 4 indicators of belonging. And this was administered to all Radnor employees. And this survey tool, I heard PSSM, the Psychological School Membership Survey, this survey tool was based on the PSSM. After the survey was issued to employees, we had in-person support from Dignity Consulting, who is the organization the authors work through, and a member from the authors team spent 2 days in Radnor schools working with building leadership and unpacking and understanding the results of the staff climate surveys and developing action plans. We have been working on a student climate survey, and that is planned to be administered with students in grades 3 through 12 sometime in mid-February. The same consultant will be returning to Radnor to work with building level teams to analyze the results and develop action plans after these surveys are given to make sure that we are working to increase student feelings of appreciation, acceptance, validation, and fair treatment. In addition to the book study, other building-based activities have continued. Radnor has had a long-standing tradition of DEI work. And we continued our commitment to DEI and fostering a sense of belonging. And I'll just hit some highlights, some things that we're proud of. That one of the things, and this hasn't even happened yet, it's upcoming on Saturday, January 21st. We've got an upcoming multilingual community fair. And this is specific to EL families in our district. We think about DEI, we want to make sure that our EL families have direct access to school and community resources. How can we help them with things such as opening a bank account, learning about municipalities and contacts in their areas in case they need support? How can they access translation services? So this is one of the things that's upcoming that we're excited about. Radnor went and a number of years ago created a full-day kindergarten program, and that's something that we're really proud of as a district. But just recently, we realized that there's families in our district that really benefit from a preschool experience, but who are unable to secure one. And so we created our own early learning academy to provide a preschool program for families in our district that need that, but cannot access that. Radnor High School is in year 2 of 5 of a process to reduce academic tracks. We looked at data and did a lot of research about the detriments that academic tracks can provide. And so the high school administration, along with the curriculum office, created a plan to consolidate academic levels to provide opportunities for students to challenge themselves and grow and move up in our academic tracks. And so we're in year 2 of 5 of that. It's a lot of work. I got to give a ton of credit to our teachers. They're doing a phenomenal job, and we're excited about that as well. One of the things that we started just before COVID that is also a DEI for us is free after school tutoring. So we created an extended learning program for students. We saw a gap that we had a number of students that could benefit from tutoring, but if anybody has had their children tutored, it's really expensive. And so how could we meet that gap? And so as a district, we allocated money and we secured teachers, and our teachers have been awesome. And we offer in-person and evening Zoom tutoring for any student who attends Radnor schools to ensure that they can get the support that they need to be successful in their classes. And so that's something that I'm really thankful that our board helped prioritize as we build our budget, and our teachers for stepping up to help support that and support our students. Our accessibility and wellness project. So we're in the final stages of a major upgrade to our high school facilities. We realized that our facilities were not ADA compliant and accessible to members of our community. And so when we think about inclusion, our board invested to make sure that our campus is a warm, welcoming, and accessible experience for anyone that steps foot on it. I'll say that this has not taken place yet. We have presented it to our school board curriculum committee, and we are anticipating that our board's going to vote on this at the end of this month. But thanks to feedback from members of our community, Radnor engaged in a months-long process to re-examine our calendars this fall. We had community members that came out and asked for us to really look at the holidays that we're celebrating and making sure that our calendar is equitable. And due to the study, we had a number of people from our community that stepped up, that gave up a number of evenings over the course of the fall. And we have a proposal to add additional holidays such as Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha, Diwali, and Lunar New Year to reflect the diversity of our community. Lastly, our high school just concluded our inaugural bocce ball season, and this is part of Unified Sports, which is a partnership between the Special Olympics and the PIAA. This was extremely successful. We had a great turnout for student participants and spectators, and we were thrilled to provide this for our kids. I heard the Delaware Valley Consortium for Equity and Excellence. Radnor has continued that. We've been a member of that for a number of years, and we continue to send teachers for professional development, as well as participating in the ADL's No Place for Hate program. So thank you for the opportunity tonight to talk a little bit about the things that are going on in Radnor. We are very excited for the support that we receive, both for our community, our school board, and our employees, and look forward to continuing this important work.
Mr. Bechtel, thank you so much. Dr. Wexler from Great Valley.
Hi, Anthony. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm one of the assistant superintendents for Great Valley School District, and in my role, primarily oversee a good portion of our HR, hiring and retention of staff, some of our professional development. Great Valley does not have a designated equity director, so as a cabinet, we really share that work. I do have two of our cabinet members on tonight, Andrea Dinsmore, who is our Director of Student Services, and Dr. Tricia Beck, who is our Director of Teaching and Learning. And they may supplement a little bit as I speak here tonight. Part of my role as the assistant superintendent is we do have a community council, our Council for Diversity and Inclusion, that was formulated back in 2019. So we've been trying to engage our community in equity work and helping us set some goals to move the work forward. And what we realized, I would say last year, really kind of in the height of a lot of the volatility that we were seeing at our school board meetings and some of the community dissension that we were facing, is that it was important for us to take some time to do a more focused equity review, a large scale equity review, which was brought forward immediately after our school board passed an equity policy. So we passed that in the spring. Part of that policy really commands that we do some ongoing periodic equity audits and then develop a, sort of robust, different from the comprehensive plan that would exist on its own, an equity plan with goals and action steps. So I just bring that up because, to be honest, a lot of what my time has been tied up with recently, since really the end of the summer, is organizing this large equity review. So it's been incredibly time consuming, but in a really, I think for our community and our school district, in a critically important way, because we could see that we needed to really engage our community in building some momentum and consensus and a better understanding of what our community needs in order to move the work forward. So we are in that process with DVCEE. We've been a member for quite some time as well. We've had several community group forums. We've had parent affinity groups so that people would be able to be with others who might have similar experiences and share whether or not they feel the district has been welcome and inclusive to them. We've had site visits at all 6 of our buildings where we've had opportunities for every single staff person in the building to be engaged in this work. We have 3 focus questions that are asked, and they do really center around people's experiences in the district, around feeling welcome, feeling included, having the accesses to the resources that they need to navigate their needs for their children in the district. We engage students in this as well. We had student forums in 5th grade, at the middle school, and at the high school. And our board is sort of the last component this week, where we're doing some board focus groups to get our board's input. So I just kind of say that it's been quite a process, but we're nearing completion. We expect to have a report at the end of February, early March, and then we will begin to talk about that publicly and go back to our CDI and start to build some concrete actionable plan for public and board approval that will be presented to the public. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. We've also done climate surveys. We've looked at our data. We've done detracking initiatives. So we've been doing some of that work over the past couple of years. But what I thought we would just quickly talk about tonight and highlight is that we've been doing responsive classroom into the elementary and middle levels is also sort of the next step. And we've engaged a consultant to work with our administrative team and our board. We actually have a board retreat this weekend, so that should be interesting and enlightening, where our consultant is going to help us look at responsive leadership approaches. So kind of as some of you talked about, having that idea of inclusion and belonging, is we want to make sure that our board and our admin staff sort of understand the model around responsive classroom and how we can apply it to our leadership so that we are building a community, I would say, of empathy, where we're really attuned to each other's needs. And that includes our students, our staff, our parents, our community. So that's kind of where we are right now with that. Our elementary principals have gone through some pretty significant coaching already, but we're going to build that into our admin team and do some work with our board. So that's coming up soon. I also just quickly want to mention that within that idea of belonging and school culture and sort of what we call tier 1 supports that everyone, all of our students have access to. Ms. Dinsmore, who I referenced earlier, is building like a mental health strategic plan that really focuses in on that tier 1 support, because we really do want to make sure that kind of taking a step back and making sure that the school culture as part of tier 1 is fostering a sense of inclusion and belonging for students. So that's just another component that's in the works at the moment. Back to the community council, I also failed to mention our CDI will be expanded. So we just sent out a series of applications. We only had about 25 people through the past couple of years. It's going to be expanded to about 50 people with more community engagement. And in that process of interviewing, we asked people specifically if they've experienced any racism, bias, discrimination within the district. We want to hear from people specifically about their experiences so that we can bring more of our community together and have some dialogue about the priorities and needs of the district. So again, it's that community engagement piece to help build momentum and, like what Oscar was saying, really a coalition to continue the support and move forward. Just quickly with hiring, I mean, we're always looking to diversify our staff and to retain. We do have some of our professional staff on tonight. I saw that the other Anthony Stevenson from Great Valley, Lisa Phoenix is on. So these are some of our teachers who are part of our People of Color Employee Affinity Group that continue to support the administration with retention and recruitment of diverse staff in collaboration. I have to thank them tremendously for their help last year. We did host our first diversity job fair within Great Valley. We did it a little late last year. It was in May, so we want to look to do that earlier, potentially in April. We'll try that again to see if that yields, so our ability to connect, make some connections, have staff, professional employees and support staff kind of meet the administrative team, understand a little bit about the district, where we're situated, where we're located, what's around us, where can you live, where are the good places to go to eat, like all those things. So, because not everyone knows even where Great Valley is at times. So anyway, we will continue with that. And we are also, with our English learners, we're just trying really hard to look at as much as possible recruiting staff that have some bilingual abilities, because that continues for, like many of us, to be really an increasing need. Lastly, is we did, I guess this was a little over a year ago, I'm losing a little bit of track of time, but we did do a social studies curricular audit. And we engaged some consultants from Villanova to support that process. And I'm gonna, if it's okay, I'm just gonna ask Tricia, she's been deeply immersed in this, and if she could just take a couple minutes to just tell you a little bit about what's going on there, because it's been a long process, but I think one where we really engaged a good number of our staff to help make some very much needed revisions in our social studies curriculum to support diversity, equity, inclusion.
Sure, thanks, Joanna. And we're still in the process of this work, so it is still a work in progress. But as Joanna shared, we did begin. The Council for Diversity and Inclusion had a curriculum subcommittee. And so as a part of the goals of that curriculum subcommittee, Dr. Ed Fieros from Villanova did lead a curricular audit of our, at the time, current social studies curriculum, and provided us with feedback specific to equity, as well as other social studies curriculum identified strengths, needs, and made recommendations. This audit was then a critical component that informed our work moving forward. And so our work began in the fall of 2021. At that point in time, as many of you may be experiencing in your own districts, we struggled with substitute coverage, but we knew that professional development for our core group of K-12 social studies committee members, which were inclusive of teachers, elementary teachers, secondary teachers who teach social studies, CDI members, so members of our CDI who may teach English, language arts, may teach another subject area are also part of that work, along with our ESL teachers and special education teachers. So we have a committee of professional staff that we tried to ensure were representative across the district, who came together. And then in the fall of 2021, we looked at creative structures to provide them with equity professional development first, really spending some time. They had time to meet with Dr. Fierros to gather his feedback on what he saw in our current social studies curriculum. And then we spent a lot of time focused on equity and diversity, focused across that year in after school and evening sessions with those teachers around the Learning for Justice, social justice standards, as well as the Teaching Hard History framework. So really exposing them to what was there and leading some professional development and walking them through those documents and how they will be critical and important to our work moving forward. And then we also have really used the National Council for Social Studies work, their C3 framework, and their inquiry design method to really guide our social studies work more so than the state standards. We knew that we needed to look to something that was more inclusive, that was more probably more at the forefront of social studies instruction to really guide our work. And we've also tied in the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations, which also pull in some of that equity and diversity work. They look at poverty and hunger and gender equality and all of those critical components too, to weave that together to, we walk through in a year all of that professional development. And then we began to divide out and really frame out the content that we wanted across all of our grade levels K-12. And then we're just in the middle process of looking and using Learning That Transfers. So that's a resource that really focuses on curriculum writing to support students in not just content understanding, but also being able to apply their learning to novel situations and have a real world application. So we've worked through and we're using that design model to build our curriculum. And it really also focuses, like I said, on that application and critical thinking. So we've pulled representatives from across the district together. We have led extensive professional development, and we're now in that design process. So really grappling with how are we writing this? How will this look? What's the real world application? How do we make sure that we're incorporating multiple perspectives, as many of you have already mentioned tonight, and ensure that multiple voices are heard? And how do we ensure that we have multiple primary source documents that represent, again, those perspectives as well? So we're really in the throes of that. And hopefully we'll have more to share in the coming kind of 4 to 6 months moving forward. But that's been the process thus far, which is slightly different for us in terms of the extensive amount of professional development, the input from the curricular audit, and then really looking at a unique curriculum design process, not necessarily, kind of taking UDL and understanding by design, multiple steps forward in terms of really thinking about how do we ensure that we're teaching students and engaging them in learning that they'll then be able to apply to unique problems and situations that they'll encounter both in school and then outside of school when they leave us. So Joanna, I don't know if you want me to add anything else.
No, thank you. I'm sorry if we went a little long, Anthony.
No problem. Thank you all. Is Miss James Cole, did she make it from Lower Merion? She had a class, I know.
I don't think she's made it yet. She may still yet show up later, but we can continue with the Q&A and
yeah. So first of all, I want to thank everyone for their contributions. Yes, some folks ran over time, but sometimes you have to let people put it on the table to share their support information, and all of it was good stuff. So I'm going to start with a question, and so what we have here is we have folks who have been assigned DEI folks, and some folks who have their administrative roles to take on those that work. And so in all of the situations, the question is, some of the times these positions have been challenged. and the work has been challenged. And the question I would ask for those who are DEI folks or otherwise, what do you say to those administrators or school leaders who argue that this work, this position is not necessary because this work is everyone's job and it shouldn't be focused on one position?
I would love to take a stab at that. I think my most favorite thing is when this work is everyone's job. Well, I don't know anyone who has a job who doesn't have someone to answer to. There has to be someone in the mix that keeps us all accountable. DEI in its best form, in its purest form, is diverse in and of itself. If you're doing DEI properly, you're not leaving out anyone. You've thought of things as broadly as possible, and you're ready to say, we apologize when that time comes. If there's not someone that's watching all of that, that doesn't happen. So these roles are extremely important in that way. Just in the way of optics, they're important. I don't know about anyone else's students. I'd like to say I was at the collegiate level for 15 years and was working in DEI before DEI was trendy, before the summer of George Floyd, before things in this country started to reach another fever pitch. And doing this work prior to 2020, it was people that were more upset, but kind of in the status quo. Well, we get this is the way things are, we're frustrated, but let's work on it. It is a very different tone now. This is a problem and it needs to be addressed. I want to know that person was spoken to. I want to know what next steps are. I want to know what I can do to change. I want to know what I can do to help my friend because she's sad or because I know they're going through something that's DEI related. It's not okay to be performative, and it's not okay to just kind of put these positions in a box. They have to be functional. They have to be heard. And anyone who thinks otherwise is just not doing DEI properly. And that's sad because it's such a beautiful thing when done properly.
Thank you, Dr. Thorpe, thank you so much. Does anyone else want to comment before we move on?
I'll comment. So I've been in TE for over 20 years, and I started as a teacher, became an administrator, assistant principal, curriculum supervisor, and now director. And I've always done DEI work, right? It's part of many of us here. We're constantly doing DEI work because we believe, in this work. Last year, I was given the title of Director of Equity and Public Programs, which comes with other responsibilities. But I have to say that having the title of Director of Equity changed the narrative a little bit within our school community. And not just with the teachers and the staff, but the students themselves, and then the community members. So although sometimes I feel like I have a target on my back, because when somebody doesn't like the work, they know who to go to, right? But at the same time, I can hear the students saying, where's that Dr. Torres? We need to talk to him because he's the Director of Equity. And these things that have been happening in our school or in our spaces, he needs to know about it. So it's very interesting the way the students are sort of like seeing that if I'm in the space and they're speaking to me, that they know that I have a power and privilege within my position and can make space for them. One thing that's been very powerful to me is my conversations with community members of color that have been within our school district for generations. And what they're saying now is that the work that we've been doing generationally, sort of like was always the same thing over and over and over again. But what they're saying right now is that this sounds and looks different. The dedication of the district, the support of the superintendent being right there front and center, the board, and me having this title makes space. And sometimes I say, you gave me the title, Rich, so I'm doing the work. So it gives you this sense of like, okay, I have a responsibility with this part of my title, and therefore I need space to be able to do this work. And I think that what I'm hearing from community members, students, and teachers of color is that this sounds and looks different. I think that alone really does carry me into continuing to do the work meaningfully and respectfully.
All right, for the sake of time, thank you both. I want to make sure we get some other questions in, but I think you both captured it in a great way. Thank you. Alex, I know, or Chad, do you have any other questions that were online?
Yeah, there was a question about the newly created AP course on African American Studies, and just to wonder if any of the districts represented tonight are planning to run it in the 23-24 year.
I can always hop in and answer that. So we currently do run a class like that right now, but I think part of the question was, are there any obstacles when it comes to running classes? Like right now we have African American Studies class, but our students are also asking for an AAPI class, and they're asking for different cultures, and we're trying to figure out how do we best bring the perspective of so many in a firsthand perspective so that we can get a full picture. But I would say, I wouldn't call it an obstacle, but there's policies and administrative regulations in place when we think about public schools, at least, for the curriculum creation process. So it takes time. You have to do a lot of research. You have to build a course. You have to get people who are qualified to teach it and who can understand how to handle those complex discussions that occur in the classroom, because students are eager to talk, but you also have to know how to start the conversation, get them excited, bring them back down, turn it a different direction when they might get upset or they don't understand something. So you want the right person to be able to teach some of these classes. And so you really have to go through a lot of the processes within a district to do that. Many districts have a curriculum review cycle, and new courses are created within that review. So let's say it would be counted as a social studies class. We would have to wait until we go through the social studies review process to be able to identify what are some new curriculums, because if we didn't have a process, there would be classes left and right popping up. We were able to figure out how to staff them, how to fund them, and make sure we had all the materials and have enough students who want to enroll in it. Because if we know at like a high school and a middle school level, you have to have a number of students in the class to be able to run that class. So we just have to make sure that we look through all aspects and make sure we're following the district policies and the review that has been put in place, and get the board approval before we actually end up starting the class in our district.
Thank you, Christina, for that. Does anybody else have any updates about their district or their school, and whether you have any it's on the table or conversations about it?
So Dr. Stevens, I'll jump in. One of the things that Dr. Carter talked about a little bit was books specifically. And so one of the things that our district did about 4 years ago was we brought in Dr. Caprice Hollins from Cultures Connecting, and she worked with our staff to really look at how we vet books to make sure that diverse perspectives are in our classes. And she talked a lot about windows and mirrors and how we can make sure that every student sees themselves in the curriculum, but then they also get to see others that they may not be familiar with. And so she worked with our English and social studies teachers as well as other teachers to really look and train our teaching staff as to how to make determinations about what types of books we have in our classes. We included works that were AAPI works over the last couple of years. We included works from people like Tanisha Coates. And so we've really looked at how can we get various people background and center them in our core English and social studies classes, and give kids an opportunity to hear different perspectives and for students to see themselves in our curriculum. So I think that that's been very positive. We've heard from our English and social studies teachers that's been very positive, and we have brought books over the last 3-4 years to our board to revamp our curriculum and add these to our core courses.
If I could just really, really quickly mention the thing with adding, and I think that work sounds amazing. The thing with adding is faculty sometimes get overwhelmed because I'm already doing these 10 outcomes. I already have all this, like, how am I supposed to make this work? A lot of it's about talking about what you're already doing and just kind of interweaving things. So do you have to change the entire lesson plan for the semester? No. Can you substitute something for something else? Can you just move things around slightly? It's working with what you already have. So I think it's really important to highlight that when making these changes, because it limits the amount of kind of obstacle that you're going to have and people getting upset. So just a pointer to mention.
Thank you both. Because of time, we want to I'm sorry, Chad, were there any more before I transition?
Nope, we covered them all.
Okay.
Thanks.
I want to, I'm sorry, my monitor is messing up. I want to move to let, if there's anything questions from the audience, and see if there anyone out there to raise your hand so we can acknowledge you and for your questions. And we will start with Alex because
Yes.
this is his program, so he gets.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. This is wonderful dialogue and conversation, much insight. It shows how engaged the various schools are in introducing, first of all, studying about and then introducing DEI notions into the whole process, educational process. I was wondering if you, as practitioners, notice any difference in how the students relate to these DEI notions, any behavioral differences, any difference in the conversations that are having conducted in the classroom or in the hallways. Someone mentioned that, this feels different. Oscar, I think, said that the parents are saying this feels different. The schools are certainly obviously taking this topic very seriously. Do you see a sort of shift and cultural shift among the students when it comes to these questions?
For myself, go ahead, Joanna.
No, just real quickly. I mean, I don't have a lot to say except just it feels like the student empowerment piece is much more is really strong in their engagement, and it for us as a district that has been really powerful, particularly as we've navigated the challenges, the pushback, to see our students come to school board meetings and to speak to the board in a room full of people about what they need and what they believe is important is just, it's unbelievable to see. And, I'd like to believe that if they feel that the administration and a good portion of the community is valuing the work and being more transparent and public about it, that they, that they feel that they can do that. So that's just one thing that comes to mind. And because that's why we're doing the work, right? It's for students. And so that's just something that comes to mind at the moment.
I echo Joanna. Exactly what I was going to say is that the students themselves, and I'm talking about the students of color, the students who have been marginalized in the past, as they've learned to find their voice and they see that there are more safe spaces and people that are willing to listen to them, and they see us taking the hits, right, to ensure that these opportunities are provided for our students. The students do, you see them walk a little taller, you see them smile more, you see them feel as though they're part of an experience that we expected everybody to be a part of. And yet the students are the ones that are speaking up now more so. In fact, this week, our student newspaper, the front cover of the student newspaper is about the work, our DEI work. And they interviewed many of us, including students and teachers and administrators, and wanted data and just wanted to really dive deep in. But it wasn't a story that was questioning the work, but rather, supporting the work, which was very, I was very excited that that was the angle that they were taking on the multiple newspaper articles that they had written in the school newspaper. So I echo Joanna's words.
I can always touch on it a little bit before we move on. So for example, tomorrow we have many, I would say about a handful of students. As I said, we send some students to the Delaware County Intermediate Unit for the Future Educator Academy, but we also send a group of students for something called a student forum, which is where they bring students from across the Delaware County area. I know Radnor is involved with us in the group as well. And you see, when we say behavior, sometimes we think of behavior in a negative word, but I like to always think about their behaviors are telling us something, and the behavior I see is an advocacy. They're advocating for themselves, they're advocating for their peers. They're leaning into those conversations that we as adults might say, this might be a little bit hard. This generation does not view it as being hard. I'm encouraged by how I see them embrace things. And sometimes we as adults have to also say, that was an ouch moment. How do we reflect? And how do we change our practices so that our students can see something better? And they're honest with us. And I always like to take their honest reaction to things and not try to figure out and re-explain it, because they're telling us something. And many of our students, whether they are students of color or not, they're all engaging in those conversations. When we're in a classroom, they're having those conversations with each other. So just know this generation is so prepared to take on things that we may think that they're not ready to take on, but they're already doing it on their own. And we're seeing them take action. We're seeing them at our board meetings, actually standing up and asking for different initiatives and classes and clubs, and proud to talk about what they're doing. So our kids are ready. We just have to get ready with them.
Okay, thank you for those. Do we have any other questions that anyone from the audience? This is great. People are either, well, I am glad that we had the opportunity to have this panel here tonight, because I think this panel covered a lot of diverse perspectives on how they're approaching this work. Regardless of those approaches, we all know that it's important work, and we do appreciate the fact that they have taken the time tonight to bring those presentations for their work. It is, I will speak before I turn it over to Alex, to that I know that while districts are working on this work, that the members of the community are also want to partner with you. And I look forward for groups like NAACP, parent groups, student groups, and other interest members of the community to continue being a part of these ongoing dialogues, these different conversations, because this work will never be done. So thank you for inviting me again, Alex, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, everyone, all the panelists and those who listened and asked questions. Appreciate your participation and your interest. I also echo what Anthony said. The work of equity and inclusion is not a one and done type of thing. It's sort of like breathing. You take one breath, you need to take another one. It's part of life, and part of the kind of society and environment, whether it's educational or otherwise, that we like to exist in and we like to build and help nurture. So we learn as every year, learn new things and new perspectives and implement them. And this work of blossoming and helping students blossom goes on. And I don't think it should ever finish, and it can't, because we're dynamic societies and dynamic individuals, and our perspectives and our needs continuously change. So thank you all for your work. We appreciate what you do. The community appreciates you. And we hope to see you again at our future events. We will make the recording of tonight's event available shortly so that those that were not able to attend can watch and listen, and you can also share it with your other colleagues. Thank you again and have a wonderful evening. Good night.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. Thank you, Oscar.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks all.
Thank you.